I literally have nothing to wear. All I have are these ties. Wait, at my uni, sports society have socials every single Wednesday. There's a different theme for the dress code each week. This week's dress code is anything but clothes. What? I'm sure most people will be thinking bin bag / shopping bag route, but no, not me, because I like to make my life difficult. I've been wanting to make a dress out of ties for years at this point. Now I have the perfect excuse. One problem, I have no time. Or ties, for that matter. I only have these two. I've been wanting to make a dress out of ties for ages, and this has finally given me the perfect excuse because ties aren't clothing, they're accessories, but they're not clothing. So, loophole, we have a problem. Of course we have a problem, we always have a problem. Today is Saturday. I found out the theme of the social last night, and the social is this Wednesday. Yes, you heard that right. And I currently have no ties. Or I didn't. I went out and bought these today, so I currently have 2 ties. 2 ties aren't gonna make a dress. You know what? Let's just get started somehow. If you like this, maybe give it a like, maybe subscribe if you want to see more. Let me know what you think I should make in the future. Maybe I'll do it. I'm gonna talk about where we are so far. Today's Saturday. We've got 2 ties because I went to the charity shop and bought 2 ties. They cost me £2 each. £2 each, and I can't be spending that much on this whole tie dress. So what I did last night, as soon as I found out the social theme and decided I'm just gonna make this tie dress, I went on Vinted and I found a guy on Vinted who sells bulk ties. Went on the reviews and everyone said, oh, he ships really quickly. So I ordered it and I messaged him. Royal Mail second class, so it says it should be 2 to 3 days from shipping. Vinted seller has like 5 days to ship, so obviously we haven't got that much time. So I messaged him and he said it would be this weekend. Sent them today. Today is Saturday. We've got Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Ideally we want them to arrive on Tuesday. If I get delivered packages at uni, I can only collect them from 6 PM onwards. If they come on Wednesday, I've got no clothes. If they come on Tuesday evening, I have Tuesday evening to do it. So that's where we're at. I'm gonna start by making a mock-up, just at least like a base for the ties to be sewn onto. So that's what we're doing first before any of the ties arrive. My sister is also visiting me tomorrow on Sunday. I've managed to coerce my father and brother-in-law to give me some of their old ties that they don't want anymore because I've told them they're going to be ripped up, but I'm getting some ties delivered to me tomorrow, which means I can start tomorrow evening. I have a chance of having something to wear. Let's just go. So I started by doing all the maths and trying to figure out if this was even logistically possible. I was also drawing up a design, but mostly figuring out the maths of all of it before I started cutting things up and making a million mistakes, which I am prone to doing. I started by cutting out this rough shape for the skirt piece. Obviously this will change as I try it on and adjust it, but I was happy with this start. I did the same thing for the top and began sewing the bra cups using darts to give that necessary curved shape. Tie update! Okay, we have ties. I repeat, we have ties, or more than 2 ties anyway. So today is Sunday, which I'm aware for continuity reasons is confusing because I'm in the same jumper, but it's a nice jumper, okay, and I just got it. But are you ready? We have ties. So my sister visited me today and she brought these ties from home, so like 16, 17, 18. Most of them are from my dad and then a few are from my brother-in-law. So let's show you this. Ignore the mess in the background, but this is what we're working with. And I also have the 2 ties I bought yesterday, and I actually also bought 2 more ties today. These were £1. I was like, may as well. Obviously you can see we've mostly got blues, purples, and then reds going on, which is that is the color scheme we're working with. So now I've got these ties, I can finally start again. So it's Sunday evening now. Sunday evening, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I have lessons this week during the day, so loads of other stuff that I need to do. I can finally like properly start with the ties anyway. Obviously I've got my like base work, so what I think I'm gonna do is work on the top and then one of the skirt panels. That's the plan. Obviously I need to figure out like what ties go well together and where I want to use them. What we're gonna do now. So here are the ties we're working with. Obviously there isn't quite enough here, but I can certainly get started, and I'm going to start by finding ties that I think work well next to each other. So starting with the short skirt panel, but I do also have the top in mind, I'm seeing if there are any ties I specifically want for the top. I'm sifting through to see which ones I think work best and sit nicely next to each other. This basically means lots of rearranging to figure out a combination that isn't too samey or just clashing in a bad way. I did go back and forth a lot, but I knew I wanted a mix of red, blues, greens and purples and yellow all together just to get as much colour as possible. I didn't want the design to be boring, I really wanted that total mix of colour and design and shape. So this is what we're working with. I'm really happy with this combination and layout of ties, so I'm going to commit by actually cutting and preparing the ties to be sewn. So like I said, I start by cutting the ties so there isn't excess fabric on either end. Once they're all trimmed, I can then start pinning the ties down. This helps keep them in place, especially when I go to sew them, so they're not moving about or generally just being difficult. I do have to move them around a bit while pinning, but it ends up looking the way I want it and all works out in the end. With the top skirt panel pinned, I can then move on to the bottom of the skirt. The plan is to have the thicker part of the tie hanging down, connected to the top of the skirt with one seam at the top. Again, I needed to arrange the ties in an order that I felt looked good without the colours clashing. Essentially, that meant I wasn't placing lots of the same colour too close to one another. I didn't have many red ties, so I made sure I was spacing them out between the ties somewhat evenly. This is what it looks like so far. Remember, this is only one panel, so I'll need to do this all over again for the back, but I don't have enough ties to do that just yet. I'm really pleased with how this looks so far. I think it's really effective and I can't wait to actually start sewing all the ties together. Since this was late on Sunday night, I didn't want to use my sewing machine in case I disturbed my flatmates, so I opted for some hand sewing instead. I switched my attention to the top, specifically the bra cups. I pinned small pieces of tie in place and decided to hand sew them down, which is what I'm doing now. Obviously this is more time consuming, but the end result is neater than a machine as the stitches are much more concealed. It was quite tricky sewing through the layers as ties are quite thick, but I got through them eventually and managed to get both bra cups sewn that evening. With the hand sewing finished, I decided to call it a night. Monday. I got up early Monday morning to get to sewing. I actually didn't have any classes this day, which meant I had more time to spend sewing this dress. I started by continuing with the bra cups, sewing around the outer edges with a straight stitch on the machine. While doing this, I also sewed the top straps down, which will tie around my neck in a halter neck fashion. I repeated the same process for both cups, taking it nice and slow to keep the stitching neat. I then stitched the bra cups down onto another tie, which will sit under the bust and tie around my back. This was easier because it was just a straight line, not a curve. So the final piece is nice and even. With that sewn, I then directed my attention back onto the skirt. This is where we left off, ready to be sewn, so that's exactly what I started doing. Starting by securing the long ties down, I used a straight stitch to secure them all in place beneath the outer tie. Each one was pinned in place, so I had to go a little slower, making sure each separate tie was secured in place. With all the long ties secured, I then focused on the upper skirt. I went back and forth down each tie with lines of stitching to secure them onto the back panel. I decided to go with a zigzag stitch just because I preferred how it looked in this case, especially with all the different shapes in the ties. It also prevented any gaps between the ties that were only sat next to one another, not being layered. I used a dark blue thread since most of the ties are a darker colour. I felt it worked best. Update, we have one finished skirt panel. So this is the front panel. It's on my bed at the moment. So you can see all of these ties are sewed down and these ones are all attached here at the top. It's actually quite weighty. It feels really secure though. It doesn't feel like flimsy or anything's gonna fall off. Obviously ties are quite thick and they have like their own padding in them, and I didn't take that out. I left that in purposely. So it is quite a nice like thick panel, but honestly I'm obsessed. I think it looks so good, and the fact that I've been able to do one panel and the other ties haven't arrived yet is making me feel better about this. And I'm about to sew the top of the second panel, and I won't be able to add the longer ties. That's what I need the other ties I've ordered to arrive to use them for that, but I actually didn't even think I would be able to do this much or as much as I have. So this is amazing. Let me show you what it looks like a bit better. So you're gonna have to bear with because we've not got a lot of room, but this progress, I'm so happy. Obviously, so it's Monday and we've got a whole panel done, so let me show you what it looks like. Just holding it onto my body. I know you can't see the whole thing, but the plan is these ties, it will literally the ties will tie at the side, and I'm thinking I want it to be a two-piece so that this can be worn as a skirt and as a dress. So I'm hoping that'll work, but this is what it's like, obviously. Skirt, but then also I wear it up here too, and it sits a bit higher, if that makes sense. But yeah, gonna go keep sewing. So now we're on to making the second skirt panel, which essentially is a repeated process as before. I started again by working on the top panel with the scraps of tie pieces I had. I rearranged them into a pattern I like, secured them down with pins, and then sewed them all together using a zigzag stitch on my machine, just like I did last time. At this point, obviously I was running low on ties. All I had left was small scraps, so I couldn't work on the lower part of the skirts until more ties had arrived, like I've said before. Instead, I decided to make myself a little bag with the scraps I had to go with my outfit. I used a similar technique of joining the ties together with a zigzag stitch to essentially make a panel of fabric I could then work with. But at this point, I officially ran out of ties. So I decided I had to make an impromptu trip to the charity shop. This is me on my way back being successful with a successful haul, but let me tell you more about that. So it's Wednesday, my package still hasn't arrived, and it doesn't say that it's going to arrive. So I went to the charity shop, just got back, it took me like an hour, and now I've got to do strengthening and conditioning. But basically I got 12 ties. Basically I explained the situation. I was like, I'm making a dress out of ties, I need ties, I don't have ties, could I possibly buy quite a few for quite a little? So ordinarily they're like £2 each, I think, and obviously I can't be paying that. So I was like, could I get maybe like 10 for £5? And the man was really, really nice, and he said yes. So now I think I have enough ties to do this. I do have things the rest of the afternoon, so we gotta find time, we gotta do it. So back to rearranging the long ties. Again, this is a process of going back and forth, seeing which ties sit nicely next to each other. Obviously I'm trying to mix up the colours and patterns and shapes as much as possible, and this is what we ended up with. Again, I really like this. And then it was on to sewing. So again, I started by attaching the long ties down. Obviously it's really important they're secured well. They're quite heavy, so they need to be very secure on the top skirt. So I start with them and work my way outwards. Again, I'm using a straight stitch on the machine, just going fairly slowly to make sure each of the ties are secured down properly. When all the long ties were secured down, I again was doing zigzag stitches up and down to secure the smaller parts of the ties at the top down. With both of the large skirt panels sewn, the next thing to do was to attach them together. So I started by laying them both down on the floor, right sides facing, as you would with any other normal sewing pattern. They joined together with this one side seam, so I focused on pinning that. I tried it on a couple times to see how it fit, but I pinned it together so I could then move on to sewing these pieces. So I stitched the skirt panels together, and I swear I did iron my seams flat, I just didn't film it because ironing is very boring. I then went back to work on the bag. Now that I had bought some more ties, I used a long tie to act as the straps as well as the bottom of the bag, and this is just what I'm doing now. And with that finished, we have finally completed the finished tie dress and bag. So this is what the final tie dress looks like. This is me just as I was about to go out for the evening to my social. I'm in love. I'm so happy with this. I'll talk about it a bit more in a minute, but this is how it looks, and this is how I looked just as I was leaving, with the finished two-piece, the skirt, the top, and the bag. I also wore a tie in my hair just for a bit of fun. Also feet my J2O, which I could conveniently fit in this bag because I'm sober, I actually don't drink. You know, if you can still go out and have fun at uni without having to drink alcohol, I do it all the time. So yeah. She's finished! Oh my goodness. I love how this whole outfit turned out. It was way better than I expected it to be and I was already really excited, so I'm so pleased. Honestly, this was actually a pretty simple project. It was also really nice to go back to doing something a little fun and creative, which I haven't had much time to do outside of my uni work since I started uni. So, slight disaster, as there always is. As I was walking to the club after pre's, I arrived at the club and realised I didn't have my ID because I'm an absolute mug. So, no club for me. I did have to get the bus home, but it was all fine. Obviously I got to wear this the whole outfit, which was really exciting. Lots of people said lots of very nice things, which is always lovely. And I've now got this very cool tie outfit. I'm also really glad that I made it 2 pieces. Obviously this is the skirt because it means I can wear them separately. I literally wore this skirt to my classes yesterday all day. Again, lots of nice compliments. Obviously it's a little bit eccentric. Like, yes, it's literally a skirt made out of ties, but what do you expect? I go to an arts uni. People are very chill about it. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to let me know. Maybe give it a like, maybe subscribe if you want to see more. Let me know what you think I should make in future, and keep sewing.